The slides aren't moving.
Ma'am, they are moving for
Oh,
us. Like currently, we are on.
fine.
It's,
Bar
yeah,
chart, simple bar
yeah.
diagram. Okay, okay, fine. We've talked about all of it in the previous lecture, and today we'll be talking about quantitative data. Okay. Yeah. Before I start with graphical representation of quantitative data, I will just revise this again because this is the basis of all your statistics. Okay. This slide, take a screenshot, do whatever you want to with this. Okay. But then you have to have a complete understanding of what is qualitative data, because all diagrams that you choose, they will depend upon the type of data that you're handling, right? And quantitative data, which is also called numerical data. So we have qualitative data, which is called categorical data, and we have quantitative data, which is also called numerical data, right? I'll just go through it very fast. Categorical data is of three types, mainly nominal, ordinal, and dichotomous. Dichotomous is also called binary. It is a yes or no data. Binary means it has only two options, okay? Nominal is names, ordinal is order or ranks, okay? Like we said, mild, moderate, and severe pain, okay? Non-smoker, mild smoker, moderate smoker, heavy smoker. Whenever there is an order to data, that is ordinal data. Whenever you have a yes or no outcome, that is a dichotomous data, okay? And whenever you're talking about names, right? East, west, north, south, blood groups, gender, male, female, names, whenever you're talking about names, you're talking about qualitative data. So last time we talked about all of this, bar diagrams, spot maps, all of these are used to represent qualitative data. But today's class is going to be based on quantitative data, the other name for which is numerical data, okay? Now it is mainly of two types. You have to have a complete understanding of what is continuous data and what is discrete data. Continuous data is that data which can be divided into fractions, okay? That is, decimals are possibly seen in continuous data, but no decimals or no fractions are possible in discrete data, right? A typical example of discrete data is the number of siblings you have. No one will ever say, I have 1.5 sibling, 2.5. It is always 1, 2, 3, 4 whole numbers, okay? But continuous data is that data which can be subdivided into fractions, right? For example, weight in kg. I always give this example, which is the simplest one, that the decimalization of your data will depend on what? It will depend on the sensitivity of the instrument that you're using, okay? So my weight could be 70.54 kg or 70.5 kg or 70.549 kg, depending upon what? Depending upon the sensitivity of the scale that I'm using, okay? So now here we start with today's class. Now we talk about quantitative data today. Okay. The most important diagram that you all should know is histogram. It's extremely important for you to understand that histogram is the most frequently used diagram in biostatistics and in medical research, because normally the kind of data that we, collect from patients is mostly, okay, it is mostly, quantitative. For example, blood pressure is quantitative data. Your weight is quantitative data. Height is quantitative data. So a very important thing to remember here is that there are no spaces between bars in case of a histogram to indicate that this is continuous data that has been categorized into intervals. Okay, I'll just show you a histogram and then you'll be able to appreciate what I'm saying. Okay, see, this is a histogram. There are no spaces between the bars, these vertical bars, right? They are stacked together. There is no space. Whereas in case of qualitative data, I'll just show you the diagram that we were talking about last time. In case of qualitative data, you have to understand that they were always, see, look at the space in between. This is a characteristic, way of identifying what diagram you're talking about. This is a typical bar diagram, okay? That is a histogram. The histogram does not have any kind of space between the bars, so that to indicate that this is continuous data. What is continuous data? The data that can be, divided into fractions, that has been categorized into intervals. Each bar represents the number of observations in the interval. The x-axis is the horizontal axis. It should be continuous. The y-axis or the vertical axis should always begin in 0. With 0, okay. Width of the bar represents the interval for each group. You will not understand it right now. Just go through the slides with me. The upper limits denote up to, but not including. For example, observation of 10 mm in the first group is to be included in the second group. I'll show you this. Give me 2 minutes. Okay. For example, all of you students today, if I make you stand in order of your height, right? Right. Let's start with, 5 feet to 6 feet. You can see 5 feet, 5.1, 5.2, 5.3, 5.4, 5.5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 6 feet, right? Now, if I make you stand in order of your height, and for example, 5'4", all those kids, all those students whose height is 5'4" are going to stand one behind the other. Essentially, what are you making? You're drawing a histogram, okay? Why? Because this is continuous data. It starts from 5 feet to 6 feet. Decimalization or fractions are possible, right? But we usually use a normal measuring tape with 0.1 centimeter, intervals. So this is how a histogram is made in real life. Okay, whatever you draw in Excel or in SPSS or in your sheets or your bar graphs, essentially it is this that you're drawing. Okay, now see what if we draw lines from the midpoints of all these. What you get is a histogram with two peaks, right? What is the meaning of the peak? Peak means that most of the people in your group, let's say that this is your group, are in the height of 5'5" and 5'8". See, there are two peaks. This is 5'4", this is 5'5", this is 5'8". So maximum people in your group are at what height? And the height of, most of you are sharing, two peaks, right? There are two peaks in the data, and most of you are having a height of 5'5" to 5'8". Okay. See now, again, we make another group stand from, 5 feet to 6 feet. We take all of the heights and then make them stand according to their height. Whenever you draw a line, you see there is a single peak here. And where is the peak? The peak is at somewhere between, 5'4" and 5'5". This is the peak. I think it is 5'4" here. Okay. This is just, it's a real life example to teach you what exactly is a histogram. Okay. It is nothing very, difficult. It is done in daily life, but you have to know what is the utility of histogram in biostats. Okay, you remember we talked about this example in the last class, survey of 100 smartphone users in the United States. We talked only about the names of the, smartphones that people were using, and we drew what? We drew a bar diagram out of it. But today, we are talking not about qualitative data, but today we are going to talk about quantitative data. So we are not talking about the names per se. There is no nominal data here. We're talking about age, right? Survey of 100 smartphone users in the United States, age. We'll write age of all of these 100 smartphone users. See, when you eyeball this data, you can see nothing. You cannot tell me which is the most frequently occurring number here, or, maximum students or maximum people in this 100 group of 100 people, they belong to what age group. We cannot say anything when you look at this data, okay? Now, arguably, the most useful preliminary visualization for quantitative data is histogram. It shows the shape of the distribution of values. I told you about shapes here. Look at the shape here. The shape is unimodal, and here it is bimodal here. Look, this is bimodal. Modal means peak. So it is bimodal. What are you essentially looking at here? You're looking at the shape of the histogram, okay? And this is unimodal, single peak. Okay. The horizontal or the x-axis is the variable of interest, which in this case is the age. Vertical axis or the y-axis can summarize the frequency. Frequency means number of times it is occurring, okay? Relative frequency or percentage frequency, okay? Number of times 4 is occurring here. How many times is it occurring? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So 11 students have a height of 5'4". Almost an equal number of students have a height of 5'5". Almost an equal number have a height of 5'8". Okay, so what is it telling you about? It is telling you about frequency. Okay, frequency is the number of times an observation is occurring in a group. Okay, now there's a vertical rectangle, which is also called the bar, for each class or bin. Okay, class is the same as interval here. Height is determined by frequency, relative frequency, or percent frequency. No space or gaps between bars of the histogram is a very, very important finding that you have to look for in a histogram. There has to be no spaces or gaps between two consecutive bars, okay? Now, how many bins? Big question when you're drawing a histogram is how many bins to take. Too few bins can create a histogram that does not show the shape or distribution of the underlying data, which is called a histoblob, okay? Too many bins can create a histogram where there are too few observations in each bin and overall general shape or distribution is too broken up. We'll talk about this with examples. There is a sweet spot that provides balance. Sometimes it depends on data. Sometimes it is convenience. And most of the times, when you know how to use a software, all your sirdard is gone and the software will choose it automatically for you, okay? You don't have to do anything essentially, no calculations, nothing, but you have to know how to, spot the number of bins that should be in your data, okay? For example, in the same example that we are talking about, this example, see, in this example, the ages start from 18 plus. There are 100 people. And if you draw only one bin, what do you see? Look here. This is the only bar that you get. The ages start from 18, they end at 80. Okay. And this is a simple, rectangle that you get. This is also called a histoblob. But see, it does not give you any information. Okay. Now, let's see that we divide this data into 3 bins, right? 18 to 39. 40 to 59 and 60 plus, right? So essentially the gap is for 20 years, right? We give them, we divide them into 3 bins with the gap of 20 years and see, this is the kind of histogram that we get. It now gets, some shape. We would not say that the shape is perfect, but it is better than a histoblob here, okay? When we had only 1 bin, now we have 3 bins, okay? Right. Now, what happens if instead of 3 bins, we have 6 bins? That is, the ages are divided into intervals of 10 here. 18 to 29, 30 to 39, 40 to 49, 50 to 59, and so on. Now, this is the shape that you see. See, now it has some shape. You can see that, maximum participants are in the age group of 20 to 30 years, followed by 40 to 50 years, followed by 50 to 60 years, and an equal percentage lie between 30 to 40 and 60 to 70 years, okay? This is some amount of information. Now, what happens if this data, same data, is divided into 12 bins? See, there is a little cluttering in the histogram. We usually, avoid more than 6 to 7 bins. So I would go for this kind of histogram where the information is stacked together in one visual representation of data, and you can make some sense of data, okay? Right. So now see this is a frequency table. This is called a frequency table. Now what have we done? We have just clubbed them in the same, 6 bins with gaps of 10 years each. And now we have written frequency in the rows. Remember, these are columns and these are rows. Now what are rows? Rows are horizontal and columns are vertical. Now you can see that in the columns, we have made 2 columns. One is age and the other is frequency. And we have a total of 7 rows. One is total, which is always obvious, and data is contained in 6 rows. Now, whenever we are using intervals of 10 years, we have a frequency of 24 in the first, 15 in the second, and this is the histogram that you see, okay? Frequency of 24 is the highest, and you can see, visually also see that 20 to 30 years age group, the vertical bar has the highest height, okay? Now, relative frequency for a class is the frequency of the class divided by n. For example, in the previous example, the last session, we talked about what was the relative frequency of Samsung. It was 0.28. 28 people out of 100 were using Samsung, and 28 divided by 100 was 0.28. Okay, in the similar manner, how do we calculate the frequency? 24 divided by 100, 15 divided by 100, 23 divided by 100, and so on. And the third column now appears, which shows you relative frequency. Now it is up to you. If you want to plot frequency in the histogram, you can do it. If you want to plot relative frequency in the histogram, you can do it. Okay, it's not difficult. See, this is the frequency table for relative frequency, and this is the histogram where only the y-axis has changed. The x-axis is just the same. The variable one which we're talking about here is age, and from 0 to 0.25. It is not 25 now, it is 0.25. Why? Because 24 was divided by 100 to calculate the relative frequency, and now it is 0.24. Okay. So this is a histogram for relative frequency. Now I'll just tell you how to calculate what is the number of bins which is ideal for your data. You should know it. Although the software will do it for you, but still you should know the theory of it, okay? How to create a histogram without technology. Gather the data about a variable you are interested in. Construct a frequency table. This is a frequency table, very simple. The, words are heavy, but when you know how to draw it, you just know this is a frequency table. Draw a horizontal and a vertical axis. The horizontal axis is the x-axis. It shows the data categories. The vertical axis or the y-axis represents the frequency of observations, okay? For example, the data we have taken here is this, okay? We have waiting periods outside OPD. Let's see a cardiology OPD. People are visiting the OPD and we interview a few people, say around 20-30 people, and we ask them, आपको कितनी देर रुकना पड़ा डॉक्टर से मिलने से पहले, okay? So the first person says, I had to wait 75 minutes before I could see the doctor. The second says 18 minutes. The third says 68 minutes. And the last one says 125 minutes. What do? We just record all of it, okay? After that, the second step is arrange the data in ascending order. Ascending order is from small to big, right? So we start with 10 and we go on to 140. What does this signify? This signifies that the person who went very quick went after 10 minutes of waiting, and the person who had to wait the most had to wait for 140 minutes before he could see the cardiologist, okay? Now, what is range? Range means maximum minus minimum. The maximum observation here, or the data point, we talked about data points in the first class. Data point is just your observation, okay? The maximum data point is 140, minus 10 is 130. So what is your range? Your range is 140 minus 10 is equal to 130. Now, what do we do next? We decide on the number of intervals, right? Number of intervals is 5. I just want 5 intervals, which means that I want only 5 rows here, okay? This. Look at this frequency table. I want just 5 rows instead of 6, for example, here, okay? So normally I told you we prefer to take only 5, 6 or 7, not more than that. Otherwise, there is a lot of cluttering, okay? See, number of intervals is 5. Now calculate the bin width. How do I calculate the bin width? I divide 130, which is the range, by 5. Whenever I divide 130 by 5, I get 26. Now it is very difficult to make bins or intervals at a, interval of 26 minutes. So what do? Just for the sake of convenience, we round it off to 30 minutes. Okay. Now see what happens here. The whole of your data, it gets what? It gets converted into a frequency table. The first person who waited, people who waited from 0 to 30 minutes were 5. People who waited from half an hour to 1 hour were 4. People who waited from 1 to 1.5 were 9, and so on. And total, we had 24 observations, right? So the bin width is what? It is maximum minus minimum, which is range, divided by the number of intervals, which we chose that we will, divide our data into 5 intervals. And bin width is what? Range divided by number of intervals, which came to 26. We rounded that off to 30. So here it is. You can see here all 30-minute intervals, and we divide the data from 0 to 150, 30-minute intervals, and 5 intervals are used here. See, this is what you get. This is the distribution. This is the title of your graph, okay? Distribution of waiting time at registration. This is 0, 10 to 30 minutes, 31 to 60, 61 to 90, 91 to 120, and 121 to 150, okay? So majority of users had to wait from 1 hour to 1.5 hours for registration in a cardiology OPD, okay? We'll not do this. Okay, we'll do this example. This is typical. It has some peculiarity also. Please be very, very particular. Each month you measure how much weight your pup has gained and you get these results. Okay, these are weight in kg that your pup has gained when you're measuring the pup, consecutively for a couple of months. Okay, 0.5 kg in the first month, 0.5 in the second month, 0.3 in the third month, minus 0.2 in the fourth month. That is the pup lost weight actually. Okay, 1.6 kg, 0, did not gain, did not lose. 0.1 kg, 0.1 kg, 0.6 kg, 0.4 kg, okay? They vary from minus 0.2, that is the pup lost weight in that month, to 1.6 kg gain, okay? Now, what do? We put this in order from the lowest to the highest weight gain. That is, we arrange all of this data in ascending order, starting from minus 0.2 to plus 1.6. You decide to put the results into groups of 0.5, which is the class interval. Okay, I'll show you this data in Excel also. But for right now, just for the theory purposes, just have a look at the slide. There are no values. A very peculiar observation in this data is that there are no values from 1 to just below 1.5, but we will still show the space. Many a times students get confused. They say that in one interval, between 1 to 1.5 kg, there is no observation. So what do? It will become a bar diagram. No, it will not. Whenever your axis is the x-axis is continuous, there will be no possibility that you can put this data as a qualitative bar diagram data, because what you're seeing here is there are no spaces between the first three bars. The space in between the third and the fifth bar indicates that there was no data in this interval, okay? Simply, but you have to, make this bar. Some students, what do? They put here more than 1 kg. No, don't put it as more than 1 kg. There is an observation between 1.5 and 2, which is 1.6 kg, which can be depicted separately also. So you just have to make this space. Don't omit this space, okay? Okay, now we'll talk a little bit about what is skew. Skew is asymmetrical distribution. Okay, just, we'll read a lot about positive skew, negative skew in the normal distribution class, which will come next time. But just for sensitizing you all today, whenever you draw a histogram where the distribution is not bell-shaped, like this, bell-shaped, what do you see is either the data is skewed, that is, it is moved slightly towards the left or slightly towards the right. This is called left skew when the tail is towards the left, and this is called right skew when the tail of the data is towards the right. Okay, just try to identify what is skew for this class. Okay, what are other shapes? This is a typical histogram, which is normal distribution. Ideally, things should be like this, but mostly when you're talking about raw data and you're collecting data yourself, this kind of distribution is not seen in reality. What you see is either left skew or right skew or bimodal, like we saw the observations of height initially in the first slide, or it could be uniform, or it could be no pattern. If there are too many bins, you will find no pattern. Okay, for example, I'll go back to this slide. You see, there was no pattern here. There was no typical pattern here, okay? So there were far too many bins to appreciate the pattern. So don't draw too many bins. Restrict yourself to 5 to 6 bins so that you can appreciate some pattern in your graphs or your data, okay? Okay, I'll just open an Excel sheet to tell you about this. We'll talk about frequency polygon later. Okay. Is this visible?
No, ma'am, nothing as of now.
Okay, fine. Wait a second. Is the Excel sheet visible now?
Yes, ma'am, it's visible.
Okay, fine. See, these are the age groups. Just forget the charts. I'll just delete these charts. We'll make them again. Okay. So this is your data, right? This is the age group, 18 to 29. This is the same data of smartphone users in US, and this is the frequency. Now, how do we draw a histogram out of it? See, what do? I select this data. I selected it. Please mind it, you don't have to select this row, the row which shows you, the totals here, okay? Go on insert, go on columns. You have to draw a histogram, okay? There is no direct option for a histogram, so draw this. This is a bar diagram, right? If you do not have knowledge that this is continuous data, see 18 to 29, 30 to 39, this is not, what kind of data? This is not qualitative. This is quantitative data. You might, if your conceptual understanding is poor, you might just draw this and be done with it, that I've drawn a chart or a graph to represent this data, but this is inaccurate. So what do? We double click on this. We double click here. We go here, see. You can see the histogram here. Now it is a histogram. Initially, it was not a histogram. Why? Because why was it not a histogram? Just a second. Okay. Because there were spaces in between. This is not qualitative data. Okay. This is quantitative data. So we do what? We double click here and we click on this. Now this is a histogram. Okay. And what do? See. Now it is a histogram. We can change the title. What is the x-axis? The x-axis is your age, right? Age. Now what is the, sorry. Okay. What is our y-axis? Y-axis is frequency. Okay. And similarly, you can also change the title of your chart. Okay. Now, if you have to draw add data labels, and this is your data. On the top of each vertical bar is the relative frequency or the frequency of that bar, okay? This is how you draw a histogram in Excel, right? We'll go through another example. See. Okay, this is the same example we talked about, the cardiology registration example, 0 to 30 minutes, 5 people had to wait and there were total of 24 people, okay? We'll now try to draw a histogram out of this example. Select this data, okay? I selected this data. I go to insert, I go to columns, I draw one. See, but this is not what I want. Why do I not want this? I do not want this because this is qualitative. It has spaces between the bars, whereas my data is quantitative. So I do what? I double click here. I double click here. What do I get? I get this panel. I click on this histogram and there you go. You have a histogram here, okay? Now we can change the colors of the histogram. I can draw this, okay? Then now I want to draw data labels. I will add data labels and see this is the frequency of each bar. Fine. So this is what you do. Now I just want you to see this example of the weight gain in pups. Okay, this was the weight gain, right? This is the data, actual data, which has been arranged in ascending order, and weight gain is seen in these two columns. In these 5 rows, what do? We go to insert, we go to columns. Again, we don't want this. This is what? This is a bar chart. We don't want it. We want a histogram. So we will draw a histogram. And you can see that there is a clear-cut space in between the 3rd and the 5th bar, right? See? And now if I want to add data labels, I will right-click, add data labels, and there you go. You have this histogram, okay? So this is how you draw histograms in Excel. We usually use Excel whenever you are submitting a manuscript. But what you need to know here is what is the diagram which is apt, because once I don't know that this is continuous data and a frequency polygon or histogram is to be drawn, I would go with a column and I would draw a I would treat this as qualitative data and draw a bar diagram, which would be totally wrong. So my conceptual understanding of the type of data is very important to select an appropriate diagram. Okay. Right. Now we'll go back to the okay. We've done the practical in Excel. Is the frequency polygon slide visible?
No, ma'am.
Okay, I'll share it again. Is it visible now?
Yes, ma'am, it's visible
Okay.
now.
Okay. Now we are done with histograms. Whenever you join the midpoints of class intervals at the height of frequencies by straight lines in a histogram, what you get is a frequency polygon. Okay. Frequency polygon, it might be a very fancy name, but it is just made, it's a kind of line diagram which is made by joining the midpoints of class intervals at the height of frequencies by straight lines. Okay. The slide is, yeah, is it moving? Yes. Okay. See, for example, this is the data which shows tuberculin reaction measured in 206 people. This is the histogram which comes from the reactions and the frequency of people having 8 to 10 mm reaction or 10 to 12 mm reaction. How is the frequency polygon made? We just have to draw straight lines from the center of the vertical bar, see, from here to here. Then we take the midpoint of this blue bar, we take the midpoint of the purple bar, the midpoint of the peach bar, the blue bar, the light blue, and the navy blue. So we just draw straight lines and join them. Straight lines have to be drawn from the midpoint of each vertical bar. So now what do you get? You get a frequency polygon, okay? Frequency curve. When the number of observations is very large and group interval is reduced, the frequency polygon tends to lose its angulation, giving place to a smooth curve known as a frequency curve. Such a curve is obtained in normal distribution of individuals in a very large sample, okay? For example, see, if I increase the number of bins and the number of observations in each bin is huge, I cannot, draw straight lines from the midpoint of each vertical bar. What happens? When I join these lines, it becomes smooth, very smooth. And ultimately, it takes the shape of normal distribution, okay? So whenever you see normally distributed data, it is nothing but the normal distribution line is a smooth line which is made by joining the midpoints of the vertical bars. Now, the vertical bars could be very close, as in this example. And when you would, draw straight lines, joining the points of bins which are very, very close to each other, what you get is a normal curve. Now, what is a cumulative frequency diagram or an ogive? It is a graph of the cumulative relative frequency distribution. Just go through the slide before we come back to it again. Cumulative frequency is obtained by accumulating, that is adding up, the frequency of previous classes, including the class in question. It is the total number of persons in each particular range from lowest value of the characteristic up to and including any higher group value. For example, cricket scores recording in a test match. For example, let's see that, let's assume that Rohit Sharma goes and he, scores a 25. He's followed by Virat Kohli, who scores another 15 runs, okay? So what is the total? 25 plus 15. For Team India, the total is 40. But for Rohit Sharma, it is 25. For Virat, it is 15. Let's say he is followed by KL Rahul and he scores another 50. So what is the cumulative for India? The cumulative for India is 40 plus 50, which is 90. But the individual scores are individual for each cricketer, right? Cumulative frequencies are plotted corresponding to the group limits of the characteristic on joining the points by a smooth freehand curve. In case of a cumulative frequency diagram or an ogive, you don't have to use a scale, okay? The midpoints of the vertical bars, they don't have to be joined with a straight line or a scale, but with a smooth freehand curve, okay? The diagram which is made is called ogive. We will try to understand this with the help of an example. See, we take height of many people, say 200 people in centimeters, and we draw a frequency table. In between 160 and 162 centimeter, there were 10 people. In between 162 and 164 centimeter, there were 15 people. In between 164 and 166 centimeter, there were 17 people. And see how the cumulative frequency is running side by side. 10 plus 15 is 25. 25 plus 17 is 42. 42 plus 19 is 61. 61 plus 20 is 81, and so on. See, here you get 200 at the last because the cumulative frequency is the frequency of the entire group. For example, we were talking about the cricket match. What India scores from individual batsmen, it adds up to the total score for Team India, okay? For example, if the first batsman is scoring 10, the second is scoring 25, the third is scoring 42. These are individual scores for each batsman. But for Team India, what happens is each of the scores will be added with every consecutive batsman coming, one after the other. So this is the total 200, which will be the score for Team India. Now, what do we do? We draw this histogram. This is not exactly a histogram. This is a cumulative frequency diagram. Why? Why cumulative frequency? See, it is in ascending order. There is no such order in case of a histogram. And this is the midpoint for the first bar. This is the midpoint for the second bar, the third bar, and the fourth bar. You cannot join it with a scale or a straight line. So what do you do is you join it with the help of a freehand. This is how you join it with the help of a freehand. Now, this curve that you get is called an ogive or a cumulative frequency curve. Okay. Line chart. Just go through the theory and then we'll do the practical also. This is a frequency polygon presenting variations by line. It shows the trend of an event occurring over a period of time. For example, it might be rising, falling, showing fluctuations such as infant mortality rate, maternal mortality rate, birth rate of a country, death rate of a country, and so on. Class interval may be a month, an year, 5 years, or 10 years. Okay. See this diagram. This is a typical line graph, and line graphs or line diagrams are usually used to show trends. Okay, the word here to understand and mark is trends. See, in 1960, the MMR for, let's say, India was 50. 1970, 45, 1980, 26, 1990, 15. Please, this is just hypothetical data, okay? Our current MMR is around 78, so don't go by this data, okay? 1990, it was 15. Year 2012. So look at the trend. What is happening to the trend? From 50, it has, just a second, okay? Just give me a minute. Yeah. So look at the trend has come down from 50 to 12. Okay. Now, when you look at the chart, you really don't need this diagram. You can see that it was 50 in 1960. In 1970, it has come down. In 1980, it has come further down. And by the year 2000, it is around 10 or 12. Okay. So you can appreciate the trend, right? So this is the reason your line diagram is also called sometimes a trend diagram. Okay. And whenever you're representing biomedical data, wherever vital statistics is to be shown or represented by a diagram, you should always prefer to have a line graph. Okay. We'll practice in Excel again. We'll practice on the same data that we were practicing earlier. Can you see the Excel sheet?
No, ma'am, not as of now.
Just a second. Can you see it now?
Yes, ma'am, it's visible
Okay,
now.
fine. Okay, now what we are going to do is we are going to draw a frequency polygon here or a line diagram. Okay, we'll take the same set of data. We will select this data, right? And we will go to insert. We will go to line and look, we have different types of line diagrams here. So you can draw a line diagram here. This is the line diagram for your data. See? This is the line diagram, okay? Same, the same example that we talked about, the number of people, the ages of smartphone users in US, there were 100 people and age groups with frequency, okay? So this is your line diagram, okay? Another example we'll go through. See, this is the waiting time for people outside a cardiology OPD. We go to insert, we go to line here, we click on line, and this is the line diagram, okay? It shows you what? It shows you the maximum frequency is 9 and maximum people waited between 61 to 90 minutes, okay? This is how you draw this line diagram. The same line diagram for the weight gain of pup, the example that we talked about. See, we'll select this entire data. We'll go to insert, we'll go to line, we'll again draw a line diagram. See? But the important thing that you should appreciate here is that since there was no data between 1 to 1.5, there was no bar and no midpoint. So they have come back to baseline, and from the baseline, again, they have gone up. Okay. This is the first bar, the midpoint, the second bar, the third here. The fourth data point is missing because you know that there was no observation between 1 to 1.5 kg, and another last observation, that is 1.6, was between 1.5 to 2 kg. So instead of, letting it hang in the air, it is always better that you touch it at the baseline here. And again, this is considered the midpoint since there is no bar. And then from here, the baseline, you again go up and touch the midpoint of this bar, which stands at 1.5 to 2. Okay. Now, can go back to the slide. The only, I think, diagram which is left now is scatter. Can you see the screen, scatter or dot diagram?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Now the last very important diagram, which is very often drawn in, medical research, is a scatter diagram or a dot diagram. Now, what is a scatter diagram? It is a graphical representation of correlation between two quantitative variables. Now, I can be very sure that all of you know what is a quantitative variable. A quantitative variable is a numerical data variable, which could be either discrete or continuous. Continuous variable is one which can be divided into decimals. Decimals, and discrete variable is one which can be represented only as whole numbers. Okay. Now, whenever you draw a you graphically present data wherein you are depicting two quantitative variables in the same diagram, the best diagram to use is correlational diagram. Okay. It is also called a scatter plot. It is also called a dot diagram. Okay. We'll see how to draw the scatter or the dot diagram in SPSS also. I'll show you, and in Excel, right? For example, an example of, say, increase in waist circumference usually leads to increase in weight, right? Whenever you think that you're gaining weight, what do you look at first? You look at your waist circumference. Okay. Now, waist circumference is taken in centimeters here and weight in pounds in 39 people. Now, what do we do? Waist circumference and weight are read on y and x axis respectively, and the perpendiculars drawn from these readings meet to give one scatter point. Okay. Look at this diagram. This is a scatter diagram or a dot diagram representing waist circumference at the x-axis and the weight in pounds at the y-axis. Now, each point, where does each point come from? Each point is made by drawing perpendiculars. For example, the first person out of 39 might be having a weight of around 78. Okay, a waist circumference of around 78 centimeter and a weight of around 120 pounds. Now, what do? You draw perpendiculars from here, right from here, from the x-axis and from the y-axis, and this gives you one scatter point. Okay. Let's see this scatter point. This scatter point comes from what data? The weight of the person is around 140 kg, it's not kg, but pounds. And the waist circumference is around, say, 78 centimeter. This is another scatter point. Now, when you keep drawing these scatter points, you just look at the pattern. See the pattern? The pattern, roughly you can draw a straight line to see that, as the waist circumference is increasing, the weight is also increasing. So this is called a positive correlation. Okay. The pattern of the graph that you draw in case of a scatter diagram or a dot diagram, it tells you about the strength of your correlation. Okay. For example, whenever we calculate, I'll show you how to calculate also correlation in SPSS. Whenever we calculate correlation, first remember one thing, that coefficient of correlation, which is depicted by or represented by small r, this small r, it ranges between -1 and +1. Okay. Now, if it is 0.0 to 0.3, there is negligible correlation between two quantitative variables. If it is between 0.3 to 0.5, there is a low positive correlation between 0.5 to 0.7. It is moderate positive correlation. 0.7 to 0.9, it is high positive correlation. I'll come back to this again after showing you on SPSS. 0.9 to 1 is very high positive or strong correlation between two quantitative variables. Okay. We'll just do practical in SPS and then you're going to understand. First, I'll show you in Excel. Okay. Is this example visible?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. See, I have, listed the waist in inches of a few people along with their height. Okay. Sorry, along with their weight, the waist and the weight, right? Now, when the waist is around 23 inches, the weight is 39 kg. When it is 24 inches, the weight increases to 40. At 25 inches of waist, the weight increases to 50 and so on. Now, how do we draw a scatter plot here? We will select this data. You always need to select data whenever you have to draw a diagram. You again go to insert, okay? Go to scatter. This is a scatter plot, okay? Normal scatter. See, what you can see here is that as the, waist in inches is increasing, the weight in kgs or pounds, however you have put it or however data you have taken, it is also increasing. Say, just a second. Can you see this? See, Excel is also giving you a very nice confusing regression equation. You can see R square here. This R square is also called coefficient of determination. Okay. This is beyond the preview of this course, but I just want you to know that a simple scatter plot, simple scatter plot with a line which is telling you that as your waist circumference is increasing, the weight is also increasing correspondingly. See, this simple line tells you that there is a strong correlation between these two variables. Okay, this is the reason that whenever you feel that your weight is, your weight is increasing, what do? You start measuring your waist circumference. Okay, your jeans, the size of your jeans is going to get changed, right? So this R square, this is what you call a regression equation, and this R square is the coefficient of determination, and R square ka under root, whatever you get is your coefficient of correlation, that is small r. Okay, I'll show you this in SPSS now. Another 5 minutes, I think, and then we are done. I hope you can see this data.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, now this is a simple page which is showing you the screen of SPSS software. Okay, this is a very frequently used software in biostats, and it tells you, it gives you so many analytical options that you can analyze your data, you can draw graphs, you can do whatever you want to, right? So for example, this is a simple data. I'll just tell you what this data is about. We have taken, this is real-time data. We have taken 70 people. Okay, just a second. We have taken 70 kids and their demographic data has also been taken. Okay. This is the data for 70 people. What we have done is we have taken the age of the mother, the age of the father, and a scale has been used to see if they are autistic. Okay. And forget about all the columns, just concentrate on this column. This is the total score which has been, taken after applying a score here. A questionnaire was served to the participants' guardians, and all the entire scoring has been done to see if these kids are autistic. Okay, right? This is the severity that we got. These are severely autistic, moderately autistic, mildly autistic. So severity of autism has been seen in this data. Okay. See, we'll try to see how correlation is calculated. We go to analyze. See, we go to correlate. This is just to give you a sense of you. You're not expected to know this. Whenever we talk of SPSS in some other workshop, we will do all this. But I want you to see how easy it is to calculate, using very complex formulas. Manually, it becomes very difficult. But software makes your life so easy. Go to bivariate here. And you want to see the correlation between mother's age, put it here, and total score. of the child. Okay. This is called Pearson's correlation. Okay. I'll click on OK. Can you see a table?
No, ma'am, it's not visible.
Okay. Okay. I'll show you a table. Can you see it now?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. See, whenever you try to see the correlation between maternal age and the total score, this is what you get. The Pearson correlation coefficient is 0.1. So what did we study? At 0.1, the correlation is negligible. I told you, we saw a chart at the last slide that 0 to 0.3 was negligible correlation. So what do you understand by this 0.188? You understand that there is no correlation between mother's age and the total score of autistic children. जिसका simple language में क्या मतलब है? इसका मतलब ये है कि mother's age का बच्चे के autistic होने पर कोई असर नहीं है. लेकिन हमारे डेटा में, ठीक है, दिस इज नॉट सैक्रोसैंट, हमारे डेटा में कोई असर नहीं दिखा रहा है, बट हो सकता है किसी और का डेटा से 700 लोगों का हो, हमारा सिर्फ 70 लोगों का डेटा है, 7000 का हो, 70,000 का हो, तो उनकी जो फाइंडिंग्स हैं वो ज्यादा ऑथेंटिक हैं, राइट. लेकिन हमारे डेटा में जब हम मदर की एज ले रहे हैं और हम टोटल स्कोर ले रहे हैं, तो हमारा जो आर, स्मॉल आर है ना, कोरिलेशन कोफिशिएंट वो आ रहा है 0.18. नाउ वी नो दैट 0.18 इज निग्लिजिबल कोरिलेशन. 0.3 तक निग्लिजिबल कोरिलेशन है, 0.3 से 0.5 तक बिल्कुल वीकली पॉजिटिव है, 0.5 से 0.7 तक मॉडरेटली पॉजिटिव है, और 0.7 से ज्यादा अगर आपका आता है ना तो स्ट्रॉन्ग कोरिलेशन है. ठीक है, अब हम क्या करेंगे, वील ट्राई टू डिपिक्ट इट विद द हेल्प ऑफ अ ग्राफ. ओके, वी गो टू ग्राफ्स, we go to legacy dialogues, and we go to scatter plot. We take simple scatter. Is it visible?
Ma'am, as of now, yeah, like I could see a drop down menu box, but there's no graph as of now.
Yeah, the graph is not there, but can you see me selecting the
Yeah, yes,
x-axis?
ma'am, yes, ma'am.
Right.
Yes, ma'am, yes, ma'am.
So we put the mother's age in the, say, x-axis and the total score in the y-axis. Okay. Now we click on OK. We'll see what kind of graph we get. Is the graph visible?
Yes, ma'am, it's visible.
Okay, now this is not exactly a graph, it is a scatter diagram. Okay, this scatter diagram you can appreciate shows no pattern. You cannot see any pattern here. Okay, so there is no relation between the total score of autistic children and the age of the mother. And the same thing was seen here. 0.1 means no relation or no correlation between the mother's age and the total score. Okay, now what do we do? See, I'll go to edit content in separate window. I don't think if it is visible to you. I'll try to edit this content. Is this line visible? Can you see a line on the data with a regression equation
Yes,
at the center? Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Good. So look at this, R square. R square is 0.03. Okay. Now, what is R square? R square is coefficient of determination, which is seen in case of regression. Square root of this R square is this. You can calculate it. Square root of R square, that is 0.03, is 0.18, or 0.18 into 0.18 is 0.03. Okay. So the thing is that a simple click can give you the regression equation. It can give you R square in SPSS, and a simple analysis can give you the correlation coefficient. In all three, what is the thing that you can see is that there is no correlation between mother's age and the total score. Okay. This equation also, when you have a look at the scatter diagram, you see that there is no pattern. Whereas in the PPT, what do we see? In the PPT, we saw that there was a pattern. As the waist was increasing, the weight was also increasing. Okay. In the Excel sheet also, we saw a pattern, but here there is no pattern, and it is confirmed by this 0.18, which is the coefficient of correlation, okay, or small r. It is also confirmed by this R square linear, which is a coefficient of determination, which is regression. Okay, it is only to tell you what the software can do. Don't get confused. Don't get intimidated. ऐसा कुछ भी नहीं है. It's not difficult. But you should know that biostatistics can give you a lot of information if you know how to identify data, how to identify which diagram is to be made where. Okay. I'll stop sharing this. come back to my PPT. Okay, so we are done. Now, Aradhya, have you made the polls?
Yes, ma'am. I'll just share
Yeah.
it. I guess
Yeah.
there
I
might
think
be
it's
some
time
glitch
for the
with
polls. I'm done. I'm done with the class. You can share the polls, okay?
so, ma'am. Like I'm just waiting for the poll. Like there was some glitch. Like the last time I tried it. So
No issues.
obviously,
If you cannot, I have it on the PPT also.
no,
If
no
there's a
problem. I'll
glitch
just
again,
launch it.
yeah, just give it a
I'll
try.
try launching it first.
Yeah. If it is
Sure,
not possible, we'll do it on the PPT.
sure, ma'am. Is it visible, ma'am?
Yes, it is visible. Okay. There are spaces between bars in case of which data? There are spaces between bars in case of categorical data or numerical data. Please look at the question again. There are spaces between bars in case of which data? Categorical data is qualitative data. Numerical data is quantitative data. In case of histogram, are there any spaces? There are no spaces in case of histogram, whereas in case of qualitative data or categorical data, there are spaces. Okay. Okay. Scatter plot is drawn between two qualitative variables or two quantitative variables. I'll go through the example again. Weight and waist circumference. Waist circumference was in centimeter, weight was in kg. Both are what kind of variables? जिनके नाम नहीं है, जिनके numbers हैं, right? They are both quantitative variables. Quantitative variables, okay? So scatter plot or correlation is always done between two quantitative variables, okay? Skewed data is represented by, skewed data is what? Symmetrical or asymmetrical? Skewed data was data which is pushed towards one side. Pushed towards one side. So it is asymmetrical, okay? Bin width is equal to maximum minus minimum, which is the range divided by the number of intervals. Is this statement true or false? Very nice. Yes, it is true. It is range divided by the number of intervals. Okay. So I hope it is clear to everyone. Yeah.
All right, ma'am. Should I end the poll?
Yes, yes. Please end the poll.
These are the results for the same, ma'am. Like 42 out of 66 participants actually answered.
Okay, fine. So please scatter plot is between quantitative variables, never between qualitative variables. Okay, I came across a thesis which said the title of the thesis was to find correlation between smoking and lung cancer. Okay, and the thesis was outrightly rejected. Why? Because you can never find correlation between smoker है या नहीं है, binary data, qualitative data, right? और lung cancer हुआ या नहीं हुआ, binary data. कभी भी you cannot find correlation between what? Two qualitative variables. So you should always know whenever there are two quantities, quantitative variables, numbers, उनके बीच में correlation निकलता है, okay? जैसे SPSS में आपने क्या देखा? एक तरफ मदर की एज है विच इज अ नंबर, ओके, दूसरी तरफ टोटल स्कोर है विच इज अ नंबर, ओके. सो टू क्वांटिटेटिव वेरिएबल्स कैन हैव कोरिलेशन, टू क्वालिटेटिव कैन नॉट. स्पेसिस कहाँ होती हैं? स्पेसिस बिटवीन बार्स कब होती हैं? इन केस ऑफ कैटेगोरिकल डेटा, जो पिछली बार किया था. आज तो कोई स्पेस था ही नहीं हिस्टोग्राम में. इट वाज स्टैक्ड वन आफ्टर द अदर, ओके. स्क्यूड डेटा कौन सा डेटा होता है? विच इज एसिमेट्रिकल, ओके. एक तरफ को पूरा डेटा एक तरफ को टिल्टेड होता है. This is all right, you know. Bin width is maximum minus minimum divided by number of intervals, okay? So we are done with today's class. I hope कि हमने time पे खत्म कर दिया. Next time we'll be talking about
Uh,
number distribution, okay?
so, guys, if you have any questions for ma'am, you could just raise your hands. Co-host, kindly note if someone raises their hand, kindly let me know so that I can unmute them.
But if you have laptops, try these things, you know, make some hypothetical data yourself and try it on Excel. And try to, you know, do it multiple times so that you get a hang of it. It will only come with practice. We can show you on the screen, it looks super easy. Otherwise also it is easy, but then, you know, get a hang of it by doing it. Learn by doing. Don't learn only by looking at your mobile. Try to open your screens. Try to fill in some hypothetical data in your rows and columns, and then, you know, insert, draw diagrams, try with different type of diagrams and see which is right, which is wrong. But it will come only with practice.
Ma'am, I have received a question from Saksham.
Yeah.
Saksham, I'll just unmute you. If you could just, and someone has raised the hand as well. There is Saksham. Okay, you're in a noisy background. So, ma'am, Saksham's question is, what is the difference between frequency polygon and line diagram?
Laksham, essentially, there is no difference. What happens is whenever you take midpoints of the vertical bars and you join the midpoints of these vertical bars and the vertical bars are seen in the background, it is called a frequency polygon. Okay, I'll show you the PPT again. Give me a moment. Give me a moment. Okay, I'll show you the PPT. Where is it gone? I think I just. Just a second. Is the PPT visible?
No, ma'am, I don't think so.
Is it visible now? Is it visible?
Yes, ma'am, it's visible now.
Okay. You can see the example of tuberculin reaction measured in 206 persons, right? This is a histogram. And on top of the histogram, when you join the midpoints of these bars, you draw a frequency polygon. Okay. Whenever it is a very simple thing. Basically, what happens is when you draw a line chart. See, this is a line chart. Can you appreciate the line graph here? The line chart is a frequency polygon. This was the first line. This is a frequency polygon presenting variations by line. So a line chart is essentially a frequency polygon without the background histogram. That is it. There is no fundamental difference. In the histogram, when you draw the histogram, you draw the midpoints, you join the lines, what you get is a frequency polygon. But you can appreciate the histogram at the back, okay, in the background. Whereas in case of a see, line chart. This is also a frequency polygon, but you are showing variations only by line. You're omitting the histogram here. You're only showing the data points, okay, with the help of a line diagram. So it is essentially a frequency polygon. There is no fundamental difference except that, aesthetically, the histogram is visible in case of a frequency polygon, whereas in case of a line chart, only the data points are visible in the form of a line diagram, okay, or a trend diagram. That is the essential difference. Otherwise, there is no fundamental difference. Line graph is just a variation of a frequency polygon. और इसमें भी क्या है, इसमें भी तो हिस्टोग्राम ही है. आप देखें यहाँ पर 50 पे आप पॉइंट लगा दें या एक वर्टिकल बार बना दें, 50 से यहाँ आ जाए मिड पॉइंट पे, यहाँ आ जाए, उसको ज्वाइन कर दें, तो अल्टीमेटली आपके पास एक लाइन डायग्राम बन जाएगा. सो इट इज एसेंशियली द सेम. इट इज अ वेरी गुड क्वेश्चन बिकॉज दीज आर दी delicate things that you have to understand when you're reading biostatistics, that you don't have to get confused. Okay, right? Have I made myself clear? Any other
I
question?
guess, yes, ma'am, Rakshit has raised his hand.
Yeah.
Just ask him to unmute himself.
Good evening, ma'am. This is Akshay Goel from Final Prof MBBS SCOMS, ma'am.
Good evening, bache. Good evening.
Thank you for the lecture, ma'am. I have been wondering from last two lectures that we are studying about various graphs and curves
Yeah,
and various conditions which we draw them. So I just
yeah,
want to ask that when we draw a cumulative frequency curve,
yeah.
doesn't it mean that we are just drawing a histogram with data in a ascending order?
Yes, exactly, exactly. It is basically a histogram, but the data has been arranged in ascending order. And another essential difference is what? That you're not joining the midpoints with straight lines, but with a free hand. It is a cumulative frequency diagram, right? In which the data has been arranged in ascending order. It is also a variation of histogram. So when I started today's lecture, what I told you was histogram is the fundamental of quantitative data. Anything that you're doing to represent quantitative data is nothing but a variation of histogram. See, look at frequency polygon. What is it? What is it? It is nothing but, a line which is formed by joining midpoints. What is a line chart? Nothing but a frequency polygon presenting variations by line. It shows the trend. So essentially, you have to understand that for quantitative data, you have to know what is a histogram. Then these are variations. You arrange the data in ascending order, you get a cumulative frequency chart. You join the midpoints, you get a frequency polygon. You omit the vertical bars of the histogram and make variations by line with the help of a line diagram showing trends. That becomes a line chart. Okay. So the fundamental thing to understand here is that for quantitative data, histogram is the basics. If you know what a histogram is, you will know what all other diagrams are. Okay. Again, a very good observation.
Yes, ma'am. So that means we are starting from a very basic level, then
Yes.
everything is just advancement of another.
Exactly. This is the reason we keep telling you that join the class right in the beginning, go with us towards the end, and then you will know how we are building up right from scratch towards advanced things. Today in today's class, we started with what? We started with what is quantitative data, what is data, types of data, and we went, in a way right up to regression line. We went up to R square. We talked about correlation, but the basics was what? The basics was you have to understand what is quantitative data. And correlation can be done only between two types of quantitative data. So the idea is if your basics are right and your basics are clear, biostatistics is going to be a cakewalk for you. But if your basics are not right and your basics are unclear, you are going to have, problem presenting data. You're going to have problem writing manuscripts. You're going to have problem identifying which diagram to make for what data and ultimately what test to use for what data. अभी तो हम diagram पे फंसे हुए हैं कि ये डेटा है तो कौन सी डायग्राम बनेगी. जैसे जैसे हम 2 क्लासेस आगे जाएंगे ना तो हम वहां फंस जाएंगे कि ये डेटा अब इस पे टेस्ट कौन सा लगेगा. काई स्क्वेयर लगेगा, टी टेस्ट लगेगा, एनोवा लगेगा, सर्वाइवल एनालिसिस होगा, इसका क्या होगा इसका. सो दैट विल अगेन कम, फॉर दैट ऑल्सो विल अगेन कम बैक टू द सेम स्लाइड्स अगेन एंड अगेन कि ये डेटा कौन सा है. सो द आइडिया इज पहले डेटा को आइडेंटिफाई करना समझो. जब तुम्हें समझ आ जाएगा ना क्वालिटेटिव है, क्वांटिटेटिव है, बाइनरी है, क्या है, अल्टीमेटली तुम ये सोच सकोगे तुमने कौन सा ग्राफ यूज करना है अपनी मैन्युस्क्रिप्ट में सबमिशन के टाइम पे, किससे तुम डिपिक्ट करोगे और फिर कौन सा टेस्ट लगाओगे. तो एसेंशियली स्टार्ट फ्रॉम द बिगिनिंग, स्टार्ट फ्रॉम स्क्रैच. थियरी इज वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट. आई कीप टेलिंग एवरीवन, प्लीज थियरी इज वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट. प्रैक्टिकल्स आर एसेंशियली वेरी वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट. अल्टीमेटली तो प्रैक्टिकल ही करना है, लेकिन जब तक तुम्हारा बेस नहीं बनेगा, थियरी में तुम्हें समझ नहीं आएगा डेटा की टाइप्स क्या है, कौन सा डेटा कहाँ यूज होता है और कौन सा टेस्ट किस डेटा के साथ यूज होता है, तब तक आगे नहीं बढ़ सकते हैं. ठीक है. तो अल्टीमेटली वही है कि नीचे से ऊपर जाना है, लेकिन समझ के जाना है कि हर चीज जो हम यूज कर रहे हैं उसका मतलब क्या है. ठीक है.
Done, ma'am. Thank you for such great lectures, ma'am. Thank you.
या यू ऑलवेज वेलकम. थैंक यू. थैंक्स फॉर कमिंग.
I guess that was it from everyone. I have not received any question on my WhatsApp or anywhere. So I guess Arya, we can conclude the session.
Thank you everyone for your patient hearing. I always take extra time. I'm so sorry. Can't help it. I go into the details and then it's an old practice. आदत हो गई है. I'm so sorry. Right? Good night. God bless you all. Bye.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for the great session.
Yeah, bye.
Thank you, ma'am.
Bye.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Okay, ma'am. So, thank you everyone for participating actively in today's session. And now we'll be sharing the feedback form before we wrap up the session. And you can leave the session as soon as you fill the feedback form so that we know that you've marked your attendance.
Can I
Okay,
leave?
also, yes, ma'am, yes, ma'am.
Okay, okay, beta.
Yes,
Thank you so much.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for your efforts. Thank you.
Thank you.
Guys, the feedback form, Dipali has shared it in the chat box. You can mark yourself out on those forms itself. So yeah, it's there on the chat box. I guess we'll keep the meeting opened till 8:15 so that you guys can fill out the form as soon as possible and try finishing it by 8:15.